You have just 1 minute. Make the right decision. John Doe, a hidden eighth circle master, feels like a rabbit trapped by a loin. He is looking into the eyes of a child, but seeing the cruelty of a demon. Jack knows John's secret and he's giving him just one chance to live. Is this the end for the commander of mercenaries, or will John reveal a secret so shocking that it stops Jack's blade? In just 30 seconds, a man is going to die. While Jack gave John 1 minute to decide his fate, in a flashback we see Jane telling John that Jack was not like the rumors. She saw in his eyes that he was suppressing a lot of power and wanted to hire soldiers. She hoped Jack could change their fate. John had agreed, but now, trapped in front of Jack, John felt like a defenseless animal. How does this boy know that I'm an eighth circle? John wondered. Did Jane tell him? No, Jane wouldn't do that. Then how? The clock was ticking. Could this boy really destroy an eighth circle master? Seeing the cold cruelty in Jack's eyes, John began to wonder if this was actually a child at all. Should he tell him the truth or make an excuse? John told a love story. He was a commoner and Jane was a noble girl. He had met her when he was just 7 circle and it was love at first sight. They had been in a relationship ever since. Now it was clear why Jane never married. But even though John was a commoner, an 8th circle member always deserves respect. Jack didn't find anything wrong with it. The other mercenaries were shocked to learn their commoner was dating the guild master. Jack understood that John took this job to gain an advantage. But was the story true? Jack used his abilities to discern the truth from lies. To test John further, Jack asked a strange question. Why does the Thulan Empire have dragon hatchlings? Jack explained a terrifying secret. In 2 years, a man named Hankins Beckham would become a transcendent, a master who uses the power of his soul instead of mana. But to achieve this, Hankins would exchange half his blood for dragon blood, becoming half human, half dragon. Jack revealed that Thulan was sending spies to other countries to find more dragons to experiment on. John laughed nervously. Brother, that sounds like a story out of a novel. Jack looked at him and decided, this isn't a spy. He passed by John and said, I hope your marriage really happens. Just as Jack turned away, he noticed something in John's demeanor and quickly drew his sword against the back of John's neck again. John was about to react, but Jack grabbed his mouth. I doubted you before, so I'm leaving you alive. Don't even try that again. If you show any killing intent, I'll wipe you off the face of earth. The other soldiers panicked and tried to intervene, but Jack sat back down and he thought we had a compromise, but perhaps this is just a relationship between the employer and employee. Jack went to sleep that night, but the mercenaries were in shock. They now knew their leader was an 8th circle, not 4th. Yes, they were hurt by the lie, but they also realized they were now the most dangerous mercenary group on the continent. John couldn't explain why he was so scared that he nearly ruined his plans. Jan was right, Jack was interesting, but terrifyingly dangerous. A few days later, as the carriage traveled, Jack told another story. It was about an orc lord who lived in the forest of monsters. The mercenaries only knew he was powerful, but Jack revealed he was actually a 10th circle beast. Jack explained that 23 years ago there was a secret relationship between the orc lord and harpy lord. Normally, these two species are deadly enemies protecting opposite sides of the forest, but their secret love changed the balance of power. The mercenaries listened, stunned, as Jack spoke of things that were supposed to be national secrets. Let's talk about the forest. It's wild. Basically, everyone is obsessed with power. The orcs and the harpies tried to play nice and overthrow their lord, but their plans totally flopped. Afterwards, the orcs and the harpies said, we're out, and left everyone else to fend for themselves. Now, things are bad. The harpies learned how to fight properly from the orcs, and the orcs somehow stole elemental powers. Together, they are now the most dangerous duo in the forest. Jack told his mercenary buddy, John, if an orc or harpy grabs you, tell them this story. Maybe they won't eat you right away. This was funny. John didn't know if Jack was joking, but he just nodded and took the advice. Meanwhile, Jack munched on some delicious beef jerky given by Jane. Okay, so over at House Wealthier, Marcus Meraki was having a terrible day. News arrived that all of Jack's soldiers were dead. Advanced magic, the investigators whispered. The Marquis panicked and said that I thought Jack was worthless. Who did this? He immediately called this guy Ganjas, and he was really angry and said that you said that Jack was harmless. And he was looking at the Marquis nervously. Well, we didn't find a body. He might have escaped. The Marquis grunted. Something was very wrong, and he shouted, find him, Ganjas, now. Meanwhile, Jack and the mercenaries reached Mount Baldur. Jack paid them extra, actually, but instead of leaving, the mercenaries just stood there. John looked at Jack, who was technically the youngest, unsupported son of the Marquis. Look, Jack, being a mercenary isn't bad. I know what happens to guys like you without support. John was offering Jack a job. It was hilarious, really. Jack could have killed John right then and there. John was hiding his true talent from his buddies, but Jack respected the offer. He declined, but leaned in and whispered something terrifying. Something huge is going to happen on the western continent soon. When it does, you have to hide. John was stunned, and Jack smiled. Money is good, but living is better. Don't get involved. Before parting, they finally exchanged real names, and he said, I'm Jack. And John Doe said, I'm Denmo. With a name like that, John certainly didn't need to hide it. Jack began his journey up the mountain alone. He was leaping around like a superhero until he found a cave. Creating a ball of light with his mana, he stepped inside. It looked like a dead end, just big, a boring wall. But Jack knew better. Years ago, a timid, 17-year-old Jack had come here planning to end it all. He was crying, his neck was bleeding from scratch, and his blood touched the wall. Boom! A secret door opened. It seemed like a miracle then. Now it was just Tuesday. Jack splashed magical water on the wall and gripped his sword so tightly in his hand that his hand bled. A small price to pay, right? The passage opened and he descended into the darkness. At the very bottom, Jack found his master, Valentine Minrose. Well, her soul anyway. She was chained up and trapped in a tiny body, a Sumaki. She'd been dead for 400 years, but she was still pretty snappy. Who are you? Who calls me master? She demanded telepathically. Jack smiled. Recognize me. And she snapped, don't be a fool. Your name is Valentine Milrose. And Jack calmly said that I am your disciple from the future. Valentine hated stories. She thought they always changed the truth. If I were a character in the story, I'd tell you to leave and go away. Her coldness annoyed Jack, but he didn't have time for this. He drew his sword and pointed directly at her. Forgive me, master, and powering up his soul aura, but I have to break those chains. Jack knew that breaking those chains would make the entire cave collapse on top of them, but that was the price of bringing a legion back to life.